can't handle the truth.
We're on our way to get home.
I'm traveling this week to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. We've just arrived at the airport and now we're taking the ferry over to Camp Justice. That's home to the military trials and the military courts. Of course, the big case is the 9/11 prosecution. There is so much secrecy around this entire base. There are a lot of things that we would like to show you, but they're off limits. They're restricted for national security reasons. And what's striking to me is that so many Americans don't even realize that the detention camps are still open. The military trials have still not concluded. And I just felt it was time to check in again for Americans to really see what was happening here.
As the Trump administration begins its first 100 days in office, we are at Guantanamo Bay and we'll be reporting from here at Camp Justice. We'll be inside the courtrooms. We'll have updates on the status of the military trials as well as the detention camps. This new administration is going to have to make some hard choices about the future of this operation. We're heading to the courthouse complex on the base, where military hearings are scheduled for 2 long-standing terrorism cases, including 9/11. Everything we do, everything we record is closely monitored and must be reviewed by the military. With few exceptions, most of the sites we travel to are security sensitive. There are 3 courthouses here at Camp Justice. The oldest courthouse is behind me. This is Courthouse 1. It's been around for decades, but it's no longer used for the military prosecutions. The main courthouse is Courthouse number 2. That's about 200 yards over to my right. This is a high security courthouse that was custom built for the 9/11 prosecution. There are so many restrictions around filming that courthouse that all we can show you is the barbed wire perimeter. There's also been some significant new construction here at Camp Justice, Courthouse number 3, and that was completed at a cost of around $4 million. What's striking is that so many administrations have tried to shut down the operation here. President Obama signed an executive order 13492. His intent was to close down the detainee operations within a year. That has completely failed, and I think it showed a fundamental lack of understanding about the complexity of the legal questions here at Guantanamo. It all comes down to the CIA's enhanced interrogation program, what critics call torture, waterboarding, pressure positions. You just can't unring the bell on that time period. So that is the single issue, I think, that's responsible for grinding these cases to a halt, because there have been endless years of litigation about the evidence and what will be submitted to the courts. I first came to Guantanamo Bay 17 years ago in 2008 for the arraignment of the 5 9/11 defendants in the military courthouse just over to my left. This was under the Bush administration. Since the camps opened in early 2002, several hundred detainees have passed through the detention centers. The best number most people work with is somewhere close to 800. Now, only 15 detainees are left, and it costs about $450 million a year. And what's striking to me is that there's virtually no transparency on those operations now. The last time the media was inside those detention camps was 2019. This is a huge contrast from when I first came to Guantanamo nearly 2 decades ago. When we did the tours of the camps, we really had a lot of access. We were able to see the outdoor recreation areas. We were able to see these indoor communal areas. We were able to see the art lessons that were given to detainees. We were able to see the television sets that were brought in so that they could stay on top of the news. So when you think about this big picture and you look at the taxpayer dollars, about 450 million, and that may actually be on the low side, a dated number. For the current number of detainees, 15 that are left, 30 million taxpayer dollars to keep each one of them annually. And there's no way to really assess whether there's accountability and whether there's a lot of government efficiency when it comes to that taxpayer money. We're traveling to some of the new construction for legal facilities at Camp Justice, which includes a courthouse and these high-end housing units. The housing units were built for the major terrorism cases in the global war on terror that nearly 2 decades later have yet to go to trial. Camp Justice is part of the ELC, that's the Expeditionary Legal Complex here at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This is where the military trials are held. And behind me are these individual housing units, what the military likes to call IHUs. There are 156, and they were built at a cost of $12 million for American taxpayers. We were not allowed to film inside the pods, but through the windows, we saw brand new, fully equipped kitchens and washing machines. Each 361 square foot unit cost about $76,000. They've had limited use. These housing units were designed for the 9/11 trial. There's no date certain for that trial at this point. They were anticipating jurors, defense witnesses, legal teams on both sides for the military, and then for the Al-Qaeda detainees. What's striking to me is that we're 17 years away from the first time I came here and the suspects were arraigned, and now they're no longer 5, they're only 4. One of them was deemed not competent to stand trial in a death penalty case. Big picture, the commissions cost about $100 million for American taxpayers, and still we have no date certain for when this case will conclude. To report from inside the high-security military courts at Guantanamo Bay, we must travel with military escorts and pass through security checkpoints. These preliminary hearings are the only chance to see the alleged Al-Qaeda members outside of the highly restricted detention camps. These long-standing terrorism cases have yet to go to trial. Courthouse number 3 is about 30 yards over here to my right. That's part of the new construction here at Guantanamo Bay. Like the rest of the courthouses, we can't take video of that because it's so severely restricted for national security reasons. The courthouse is home to the other big terrorism trial of the USS Cole. That was the suicide bombing in 2000 that killed 17 American sailors and injured nearly 40 others. The defendant in that case is a Saudi national, al-Nashiri. He's accused of orchestrating the attack and meeting with Osama bin Laden. I was inside the courtroom sitting about 30 feet from the defendant. We're separated by this reinforced glass, and I was struck by how relaxed he appeared. He was wearing a light blue Oxford cloth shirt, and he sat there sort of swiveling in his chair as he wore a headset for the translation. I was also struck by the size of his legal team, about a dozen people. So military attorneys, civilian attorneys, and support staff. This is a taxpayer-funded legal team. No American in a federal criminal court would have the benefit of that kind of legal firepower. The USS Cole case has been in litigation for 13 years. The court record is voluminous, over 100,000 pages. At the session we attended, they were still arguing over the validity of the terrorism charges. And one of the main questions in this case is al-Nashiri's time in the CIA Enhanced Interrogation Program, what critics call torture. So think waterboarding, think sleep deprivation, other forms of abuse. And the litigation is almost always about the evidence and what will be admissible in court. There were some of the victims' families. It's extraordinary to me that they still come. It's almost 25 years since the attack. And there is a real sense of frustration. I heard one of them say today, or sort of complain about all the legalese in the process. This new administration talks about accountability and government efficiency. They should consider that it's been almost 25 years since the USS Cole attack. And I've heard other victim family members in the 9/11 case say that it was such a wound when they lost their child, but they also feel that they were let down by their own government. There is an October trial date for the USS Cole case. If it's not further delayed, it will mark 25 years since the terrorist attack against American service members.